Jesus Freak here, and following up a little bit on some stuff I mentioned in the last video, but I just want to make it clear that a lot of this is just opinion. And I'm going to reiterate my opinion on corporal punishment, that I would avoid it. That's not to say I wouldn't do it, I just avoid it. I mean, for example, let's say I had a kid that did something serious that could have put himself or someone else in serious harm. You bet I'd be tanning that hide. I mean, but there's a lot of things to take into consideration. The first is that the idea of using the rod of God for everything tends to lead to the wrong lesson being taught. That the answer to someone who crosses you is to hit them. And that's absolutely the wrong answer. I think that, it really depends on the situation. Say, also, it depends on the kid. Some would react more to, with some kids, I guess you kind of have to do that. And some kids, maybe you can get away with just a firm no or whatever, but that's probably not enough for most kids. If a kid were about to get happy slappy with someone, I'd probably grab the kid's wrist and restrain him for a few seconds if I had to. And, if they get older, I'm probably, things that I'd use that might work would be, take privileges away, send them to bed early, or without something, ground them or whatever. I'm not saying I wouldn't resort to any particular form of punishment. It's just the punishment, I believe, should be one that would not only fit the crime, but fit the child. A problem I've heard of, and this is particular to one particular group of people, is they'll basically tease their kid into doing something they don't want them to do, basically as a way to break the will. And when they obviously do what they're going to do, then they bring down the wrath of God. I mean, what did you expect they were going to do? And that's, when Paul talks about provoking children, this is my opinion more than anything else, but I think the idea is, if you're just going to beat them down, you're going to wreck them. I mean, I understand the point. But There's a time and a place for the rod. Every time they look at you funny, it isn't that. I'm honestly speaking from personal experience here. Um, but that, like I said, I'm not saying that discipline in itself is wrong or that, just giving them a firm no or whatever is obviously not going to work all the time. My opinion is you look for what works and use that. And if it calls for the rod, if it calls for the uh, hand on the backside, then it does. There's very there's definitely circumstances, like I said, where it would be called for. To me, that would be very few. Now, another thing to keep in mind is obviously common sense. I mentioned the possibility that, two authority figures may be in conflict. And I think that if one authority figure says something's wrong and the other says it's mandatory, the parents should have priority over authority figures outside the house. This is my opinion, of course, but this is just a matter of what I think is common sense. And obviously, the parents should probably work as a team so that the kid can't play one parent off against the other. We know this always happens, and I've done it myself. If one parent says one thing and says no, and dad's like, no, you can't do this, and goes to mom, Mom, can I do this? What would your dad say? It's obviously wrong to play one parent off against the other. And if I had a kid and caught the kid playing me off against the kid's mother, I'd probably discipline right away off that. Then there's the issue of the time matter. I mean, there's cases where if you act too fast, it might seem like you're acting out of anger. On the other hand, if you're too slow, the kid will probably not, because younger kids might not be able to understand and associate the punishment with the crime. Obviously, if they're teenagers, or you could probably go a few days and then still be able to associate it because that their minds have had the time to develop. But for younger kids, you might have to make sure that the punishment is swift because they'll forget about it. But obviously, you want to show them, you don't have a faulty memory. That you don't forget just because they forgot. And I'd say that in certain cases, I've had no problems with parents having eyes and ears in the community. When I was a teenager, my foster father, he knew practically half the town I lived in. And if I did something, even, something that was, perfectly fine, like I was holding hands with my girlfriend at the time, go down, and someone saw it and called them and told something. Of course, it's benign. Of course, there wasn't anything wrong with it. But, they felt it was right for him to know. And it was right for him to know. I'm almost 40, and I still deal with people having eyes and ears in the community, and they'll tell people if I'm out and someone that knows my neighbor sees me, they call her. I've had choices. She'd call me and come to pick me up because he didn't want me way out there just walking around. I mean, it wasn't a problem. I'm 39. I can take care of myself, but I just felt it was funny. But when they're teenagers, this is a good thing to have your eyes and ears everywhere because kids are going to try to get away with stuff when you're not looking and when they know you can't be looking. And if they know that, if I'm not watching you, this doesn't mean you're not being watched. If you do something I told you was wrong, it doesn't matter that I didn't see it, that someone else sees it. And, if I have a reason to believe they're not, trying to lie because they hate your guts and want to do something untoward or whatever. I mean, if it's someone I believe I can trust is telling me the truth, I'm going to treat it as if I saw it myself. I don't see anything wrong with that. And if I have ways of it's like I told you not to go down to X. How do you know? You got a certain color of clay on your shoes. There's ways of knowing, and that kind of thing needs to be taught to kids. I think that just because no one saw doesn't mean there aren't telltale signs. Of course, all of this is just opinion. Everyone's got their different ways, the different things they think are right or wrong for handling a kid. And I'm just basing it off my personal opinion. And most of this is from how I grew up. I don't want to be seen as mean. I don't want to be seen as all nice. You can be firm without being a jerk. And I usually prefer to see the idea of the rod not as a club you whack someone with, but as a staff you use to keep someone on the straight and narrow. Like I said, this isn't hard and fast or anything. It's personal opinion. But I just felt I needed to clarify things I'd said in my last message a bit. Also, when I was talking about my family, members of the family that I was referring to are long gone. I don't think there's that much of a deal as long as I'm not, lying about them. If I'm telling the truth about them, it's true whether it's, positive or unfavorable, it's still true. So, just wanted to get that off my chest. Jesus, freak out.